So welcome back to Taming the Perilous Skies, 100 Days to Launch, our weekly interview series going step by step through a debut author's journey. I'm Joshua from Spoken. I'm a multimedia producer and filmmaker, filling in for our fantastic usual host, Patrick, on this episode. And Phil, Patrick, and I are also collaborating on the motion picture that this very series is based on, which is an incredibly exciting development for us. And more on that soon. So we're joined by the debut author himself, Dr. Phil Marshall, author of Taming the Perilous Skies, out now, and founder of Spoken, the AI audiobook company. We actually delayed this episode in hopes of getting more people. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We did end up getting more people, and that makes it the perfect way to close things out. This is the final episode of the series, and we're actually now just a few days past the official book launch. As of Friday the 12th, Taming the Perilous Skies is now available for purchase, and I definitely recommend everyone here and everyone watching to go out and read it. Fantastic. So today we have something really special. We're here with some people who were part of a legendary 1992 cadet show of To Tame the Perilous Skies, a powerful display of breathtaking formations and powerful musicianship that we'll learn all about throughout this episode. So let's dive in. I'd love for you all to introduce yourselves and to tell us about the role you played in that show, what you're doing now, and whether you're still involved in this world. Joseph?
Okay, sure. I'll go first. Joe Reichert, that was 1992 was actually my rookie year with the Cadets. I was a snare drummer. And what I currently do is I'm a school administrator, so I'm a assistant principal and such. But I did spend 20 years prior to that as a band director, first in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California, and then Texas.
Kit, why don't you go next?
All right, I'll go next. Hi, I'm Kit Rogers. Let's see, I was 1992. I was also a rookie in the Corps. It was my first time in any drum corps, and I had come from California, Santa Barbara, California specifically. Just graduated from high school, so I was 17, and was my first year in a drum corps. It was a great experience, obviously. I'm now a high-tech executive in Silicon Valley, working in the semiconductor industry. And I have stayed involved in the activity. I've been on the board of the Blue Devils for the last 25 years. So, local corps out west here. But like I remind them all the time, I am always a cadet. So.
And the drum major himself, Dave?
Dave Roulier. I marched 87 through 92. 92 is my age out here. So as these guys were coming in, I was exiting. So and probably in due time. Before that, marching Garfield, I marched 27 Lancers. That's where I started. So there was a small group of us that actually transitioned to Garfield in 87. And went on to march the rest of our years throughout there. So I'm an associate director of conference services for a major law firm in Atlanta. We have probably about 14 offices around the world. And I've been there probably for 24 years now. So that's what I'm doing. My affiliation with Drum Corps is very little these days. So it's just the way it kind of turned out. So every once in a while I touch base with people and it's great. You can catch up on things.
Incredible. It was fantastic to meet you all. And now I think we'll turn the mic over to Phil. And I think you've got some exciting information to share with everybody.
Yeah, well, as my internet comes back on alive, right? So I'm relying on Elon Musk and Starlink here, and sometimes he doesn't come through. So just, if I happen to poop out here, I'll come back. It's usually very brief. Dave, when you talked about the 87 going over to Garfield, that was the year that I fell in love with Drum Corps. It was all through the PBS telecast, and I fell in love with the Santa Clara Vanguard. And of course, the 87 show, legendary Appalachian Spring, beat the Santa Clara Vanguard's Russian Christmas music by 1/10 of a point. And then you would go on to be drum major of the Cadets in 92. And so that's just an interesting, Drum Corps is a small world. And so my intersection with it is not with Cadets. I met Kit because I'm friends with a lot of the Blue Devils folks. But after I became a fanatic for the Santa Clara Vanguard, I actually ended up on their board of directors. And so like the '04 show, Scheherazade, if that happens to ring a bell, you know, just a fantastic show. And then I went on to the Oregon Crusaders, the team up here in Portland. Basically, all of the staff had left to go run the Seattle Cascades, and so there was nothing left. The instruments were gone. The uniforms were about to be gone. The semi was about to be gone, and I jumped in, raised my hand, and said, "I think we can save this drum corps." So, with a great team of people, ran the Oregon Crusaders from the '07 year through 18, and so that's my strong connection with the activity. The '92 show, I was there. I remember that show. A lot of the memories that you'll hear from the book are from my direct experience of having been there and seen it. I never marched drum corps myself, which is a great regret. I very much could have and almost did try out for the Cavaliers. Now, the Cavaliers, I might get a little grimace or like biting the teeth because the Cavaliers were the victor in 1992. But you cadets, man, you came up from 4th at the end of prelims, right? 3rd at the end of semis, and then came very close to winning the crown, but got 2nd in the end in '92. We'll come back around to those memories and all this, but I want to get into a little bit of the background here that brings us, has me at least, bringing you together. And by the way, just FYI, I also did try to reach out to David Holsinger a couple of times, but I don't think his website contact form is working. I have no idea how to get a hold of him.
He is very focused on his choo-choo train, so enjoying retirement life, and you know, every once in a while he'll pop through and post something or whatever. But yeah, he's enjoying his retirement now, I believe. So I told him I need to get up there and see his train set. So.
Well, that's great that you have a connection with him, and I do hope that you'll pass along my best regards and my thanks for his inspiration, because it's his musical inspiration that brought about that '92 show. But then also in the springtime when Kings Go Off to War in '93, which was the gold medal winner by a 10th of a point over the Star of Indiana's Medea show, which whole separate topic. Okay, let's stay focused. Okay, so I hope David will forgive me for a little bit of poetic license, because Taming the Perilous Skies, as opposed to Tame the Perilous Skies, was just a better title for the book, a more active use of the word for the book, and so I hope he'll forgive me of that. What I'd like to do is I'd like to give you some context around this whole thing, and so my book, Taming the Perilous Skies, just hit the shelves, virtual shelves, at Amazon on Friday. The background behind this is that on 9/11, I came up with an idea, a theory in gravitational physics. I came up with that idea on a flight that landed in Philadelphia between when the first tower and the second towers were hit. And I knew that the only way to bring that to life was to write an interesting story around it. And it has to do with relativity, it has to do with quantum mechanics, but in particular gravity. And so I wanted to write a story about how anti-gravity would transform the world. And so in October 19th, 2076, the world has been transformed by both the theory of unified physics from this fictional character called Brian Medlock, who at the time of the story is now 95, the most ridiculous and irascible person in history. We live about a third of our lives up as a result of his invention of anti-gravity. And on this morning, the grid that controls all anti-gravity aerial activity fails, and aerials start dropping from the sky. And so millions of people are dying. Millions of people do die throughout the course of the day. And my main character, Jack, is tasked with the worldwide investigation to figure out what's wrong. And he has to piece together some very complicated clues. It is a hard sci-fi book, which means there's a lot of quantum mechanics, there's quantum computing, there's quantum encryption, there's a little bit of relativity, but also hopefully a lot of interesting characters to bring that to life. At this point in the story, it's chapter 42, and I only have 51 chapters. And so what that means is we already know everything pretty much by this point. We know what the culprit was, we know what was behind it, and unfortunately, they're within an hour of resetting the aerial grid, and Jack's only child, his 9-year-old son, Eric, is in his very first solo aerial adventure going to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory for a science class, and he is stuck and has been all day at 500 feet. But when they reset the grid, those aerials do drop for a period of time before the grid resets and anti-gravity kicks back in, and his son absolutely will die as a result of that reset. And so that's within an hour of this particular scene. And so he's lamenting that fact. He's at the White House. He's in the Rose Garden, and so I'm going to read you this excerpt. Okay. So a couple of the characters that are involved are the 95-year-old Medlock, Jack, Medlock's arch nemesis, the 90-year-old inventor of the quantum encryption system. His name is Zhang Wang, and the daughter of the president, a very precocious and scrappy 13-year-old named Kavi. At this point, Jack has heard laughter at the White House Theater, and he can't tolerate that. Like that, there's no room for laughter right now. And so he goes and he finds that it's the White House Theater. And there is Medlock and Zhang Wang and Kavi Batra. And Brian Medlock has just asked him what made him go into computers. And so Jack's just overhearing this from outside the door. And so Zhang Wang then, after explaining how he got into computers, says this. How about you, Brian? Wang said. When did you know you wanted to make things fly? Medlock said wistfully. It was August 1992. I was 11. And my mom's boyfriend was a musician, so basically a scoundrel. And he introduced me to the world of drum corps. He paused and, getting no hint of recognition from the others, explained, that's like a high-speed and very powerful marching band, if you could picture what those were. We drove up to Wisconsin to see these amazing groups perform. Our car overheated. We kept having to stop to add water to the radiator. And when we finally got to our seats, there was only one group left. And that show changed my life. What was the show? Kavi asked. Can we see it? The door began to close automatically and the room began to darken. As the curtains in front of the room slid open to reveal a large screen, I slipped inside. This is from Jack's point of view. A raucous crowd was anticipating the group set in a swooping formation on the University of Wisconsin football field. The scene was ancient. There must have been upwards of 150 performers in white pants with crisp militaristic maroon jackets and golden cummerbunds, and tens of thousands in the stand. The group's shape was two interconnected arches, similar to how you might scrawl the shape of a bird on a landscape, simple and elegant. They were surrounded by a circle of other performers wearing blue and black flight suits. Please welcome to the field, the announcer boomed. From Bergenfield, New Jersey, the Cadets. The crowd went wild. The opening brass impact was unlike anything I'd ever heard. It was full ethereal power, with the drumline's precision to match. The group encircling the musicians spun flags so precisely, I initially thought they were a machine, or AI. They wore goggles atop their heads like pilots of antique airplanes. Those goggles, Medlock's assistant said, those look like, that's where I got the idea, Medlock said, and I recalled how Medlock had made history in his very first aerial, the Bean, wearing something similar. One of the White House attendants I had seen earlier, now in jeans and a sweatshirt, was the woman I had overheard laughing from the door. She poured a bourbon for everyone, even one for Kavi, who looked quite comfortable and familiar with the drink. The group on the field accelerated faster and faster in kaleidoscopic whiplash forms as the music crescendoed to even greater power. Watch this, Medlock said, then upped the volume even further. The group coalesced into the formation of an old bomber, complete with 8 spinning propellers. They accelerated across the field to a climax of soaring unified brass that ignited the crowd into another wild ovation. You asked when I knew, Medlock said, pausing the video on the airplane formation. That was it. Over the next several months, I wrote and telephoned all the people who designed that show. I got their drill charts, their music scores, their choreography notes, you name it. If it was from that show, I had it. I calculated the number of actions, the number of individual decisions those performers had to make to create that single piece of art. Notes, dynamics, body position, flag rotation, and so on. Would you believe it was over 1 billion? All for a single piece of art. I had been there. I had seen it. Art and precision and power melded into something new and fantastic. I knew from that moment I was meant to build big, complicated, and beautiful things. The lights came back up, and I half hid behind one of the curtains lining the back wall. That show, Tavi said, with a tip of her whiskey towards the screen. What was it called? Medlock looked at Wang, and his bottom lip began to tremble. Taming the Perilous Skies. Wang looked down, nodded, then looked back up at Medlock. Well, my old friend, have we tamed these perilous skies? I am sorry to say it appears we have not, Medlock said tearfully. So that is the scene. And so what I'd like to do now, because this is going to be part of the video, and I hope a lot of people see this, is I'm going to play just that beginning, that moment from the show. And so I'm going to share my screen here. Let's just get it on the right two videos. This particular version of the video is the high definition version of the video, and does not have the intro. Actually, this one here does have the intro. So I'm going to play 2 seconds of this one. Okay.
It's the high camera version. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the high camera version. It's not real high quality. And so hopefully we'll be able to get that going here. Here, I'll show you. Well, let me stop sharing and see if I can't get that going again.
It's funny when I see those videos come up, I'm like, I know where my dot is still.
Yeah. Where your dot is.
You guys did enough years. You probably, I don't know if you can still remember it from each show, but it's the only show I did. So I actually know where I am there.
All right.
A lot of people can recall their places and position.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You go through so many of these that you don't know. Yeah. Every once in a while, I remember myself in passing on a video, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Let's take a listen just to the introduction on this one, and then we'll switch over to the higher definition one, because I want to hear the drum majors being announced, Dave.
Let's make their drum majors.
Hi, my name is Dave Rulia.
And I'm Joanna Allen.
We're the drum majors of the Cadets of Bergen County, Hackensack, New Jersey.
Our corps director's name is Mr. George Hopkins.
Our repertoire this year is To Tame the Perilous Skies by David Holsinger. Watch us fly.
All right, I'm going to switch over now to the other view. And Dave, I must say that it's fantastic to hear such a Jersey accent. That was really, really great.
That was more Bostonian than Jersey.
Okay. That's what I know. I'm from Indiana.
Yeah.
Let's share this tab here now. Were you guys able to hear that? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Here, let's just watch the beginning of the 1992 Cadets to Tame the Perilous Skies. All right, I'm gonna just keep it right there for just a moment. And so we know where Dave is. He's down center right there, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Good to know.
So Joe, where were you in this?
I am. If you see the snare line off on side one, yeah, you can kind of see the tall Shaco there in the snare line. Yep, that's me.
And Kit, where are you?
So I'm on the 30, kind of right in front of him on the 32.
On the 32, right here.
Yeah.
Look at that. Well, that's fantastic. I'm going to just bring it back to us kids now, and what I'd like to do is I'd like to just hi Emily, welcome. We can't hear you. You're muted. You should be able to hit you. There you are. So you probably caught the fact that we just showed us a snippet of your show.
Yes.
And I had given a little bit of background just before that about the excerpt in the book that brings about that moment in the White House Theater in October of 2076. But before we go on any further and do memories of that show, Emily, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your role in that show and what you're doing now. Do you stay involved in the activity?
Yeah. My name is, when I marched, my name was Emily Aycock. I'm Emily Lyman now. I was a rookie. I marched in 92. I played mellophone. I work at the University of Southern Mississippi. I work in higher ed. And that's the college that I attended whenever I marched. My husband and I met there. He graduated with a music ed degree, and we have, since he and I have been married, we've been together since 1996. We have had WGI groups. We both ran an independent open drum line for years. And he has worked with DCI since, I think, 2016, maybe 2015, on the design staff for several different corps. So I've been in the pageantry arts, I guess, adjacent as the wife of a staff member. And I was always for our Scholastic world-class drumline that he had for 19 years. I was kind of in charge of the band booster and the volunteer part of the school and all the prop dads and everything. So I work at the university as a financial coordinator, but my husband has been in education, and he marched in Starving, Indiana. We were on tour together in 92. So I have been involved in pageantry arts in a support role, I guess you'd say, pretty much since 1997.
Well,
right at the year after we got married.
That's fantastic. I'm sure in sharing memories with your husband of 92 that he must not be too bitter is slipping into third place.
Yeah. It's an interesting coffee table discussion.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I think Star was first at the prelims, right? And they had just
they were first the whole season, the entire summer, until they just blew apart in finals week.
Yeah, I remember when we saw them early in the season, and they won an early show that we participated in, and so they did a standstill concert afterwards. And our staff was saying, "What are they going to do the rest of the summer? They're already clean."
Yeah.
So they were good early, as my recollection. And then we had that. What was it called? The early champions. It was in Tennessee somewhere, I think. Where
Nashville.
It
was called Preview of Champions.
Preview of Champions. I mean, we were still running into each other. And stuff. I mean, the show was so hard. I mean, we were still having little train wrecks and stuff on the field early in the summer. And my recollection is late in the summer. I don't know if George pulled us out of a show or what we did. We went in the woods somewhere for 3 days and ran just block after block after block after block and tighten things up. And we came out of that a totally different corps. So,
yep.
And that was one of the criticisms of Star that year, is that they had just maxed out. They didn't have any headroom to go. And both Cavies and Cadets, I think, just had such a difficult show that you still had room to improve. I would love for you guys to just share, any and all memories from them, to give just some context to that summer, that year, what it was like, what were the hard parts, what were the great parts, what do you remember about the design? I'd love for you guys to just share those memories so we have some context to all of that.
Well, you know what? I'll share. I'll kind of tack on to what you were talking about, Kit. I remember we were in Indiana at a Star show, and with the drum line specifically, I mean, it was, oh my gosh, we we ended up having 7 snares, but like at one point we had like 5 snares, like 2 quads, like 3 bass drums, because like one of the guys in the bass line, he was like, hey, he had to go back to graduation and all, and it was just, I just remember us doing the show, and we were like, they were all standing against the fence watching us, and we were just like mortified. We looked like this ragtag like group of like whatever. We didn't, for us, we weren't the cadets. It was like, oh my God, it was just piecemeal, and then we were able to get a he's a very good friend of mine. He had marched in '91. It was going to take '92 off, and I just remember, the drum staff went and grabbed him from another drum corps he was teaching for the summer, and they were like, "No, you're coming on tour." And then we plugged him into the show, but like little by little, it was kind of like the engine, the little engine that could. We started off a complete disaster, and then as the season went, it really, I mean, you see the end result. And I just remember when we broke ranks, and we kind of congratulated the Cavaliers. You're talking about the progression of the season, Phil. I remember a couple of the Cavi guys saying to us, "Hey, good thing finals was tonight and not next week, because you guys definitely would have beat us." We were like, "Thank you very much, congratulations." Yeah.
So you all you don't feel like you really maxed out what could have been possible. And I'm guessing that all came as a result of the difficulty of the show, or at least a big part of it, right? I mean, in looking at that show, I'm just gobsmacked by the complexity of it. What do you remember about the book and the designs? Was that a Zingali show?
No, Mark Sylvester.
Oh, Mark Sylvester. Okay, sure.
Mark Sylvester, and it's funny, coming from Santa Barbara, the rough streets of Santa Barbara, California, all the way back there, back to the East Coast. I didn't know anybody in the Corps when I showed up. And I remember in the first practice, the Corps had already been together and working on the drill, and I was this rookie lead baritone. And the reason I wanted to march with the cadets is because at the time, for sure, the cadets, in my mind at least, were the Corps that moved the best. I mean, was very known for moving at high velocity and very complicated drill, and had done so for years. And so that's what I was attracted to all the way from California to it. And was right-footed, had a long tradition, a bunch of weird little things that just made the cadets extra special in my mind. And in that first rehearsal we get there, we're working on some of the back end of the show, and Mark Sylvester was like, "Look, you came out," he said this over the microphone in front of everybody, because I was not able to get from my dot in one area way over to somewhere else I needed to get to. And he said over the microphone, he said, "You came back here to move," in his interesting accent, "and you need to get there. I don't care what you have to do, you have to get there at the time you get there." And so I learned how to, what is equivalent of jazz run now while you're playing and that kind of thing, just to figure it out. But that show was really moving, and particularly the last minute of the show is bananas. So
yeah. Dave, as you oversaw this from on high, what was your perspective about this? Because you had a lot of years of experience to know how this fit with regard to complexity, with regard to what the challenge was for the performer, challenge for you as the conductor. What do you think about that?
I think Joe spoke about it. I mean, we just came off a year where we were kind of unidentifiable in '91, and here we are. We have this show that really spoke to everybody that was there. The issue is people. I mean, we had Greeley, we had that illness go through. I mean, everybody was just trying their best. There were people out there throwing up and then saying it doesn't matter, let's just keep going, but little by little we kind of dwindled down to this small little B Corps, and I remember we had this showcase, and like I said, it was very embarrassing because there was a skeleton of a drum line. There were gaps in the drill that were just enormous, and we could barely hold it together, because a lot of people didn't know the drill, and through time, like Joe said, it was like or what Kit said, you're coming on board. You're doing this. This is great. You're going to be fine. And the work ethic of all the people involved in it realized how great of a show it was. But how demanding it was too. And it took a long time, to realize that until we got into like mid-July, when we actually had a full core probably. And then we're able to kind of perfect the product. That was a lot of work. And in doing practices, we would practice stupid. We would practice all the way till 12 a.m. I think there was a time
Yep.
we were in West Virginia, practicing. We just said, just practice, go eat something real quick, come back and practice, and that really kind of kicked things in play. And I just remember West Virginia being that pivotal moment for us. And we had our times where everybody was like, my gosh, it's like, we're not going to be able to get this all cleaned up. But, come time when August, we were coming out of the gates point guy. And I made it a point to really just pull people in and say, look, I could care less about where we place and what these judges think. We work way too hard to be judged on anything that we're doing at that time. So just focus on your product and get out there, because Emily's married into drum corps. She's married to Tony, and I totally admire what Star of Indiana did, what the Cavaliers did, what the Blue Devils did, and it was all great to just be a part of it. You know what I mean? So the judging component, and it's no disrespect to people that judge, because there is a place for them. There's no place for them with me when it came down to performance, because that was my celebration at night. We worked hard during the day, and we went out there and we just, enjoyed that show, and that's what it was all about.
No, that's fantastic. And what I'm hearing is that it was the individual performers that had to live up to that potential, and they felt that both pressure and that celebration when they did. But to hear about the illness that went through, to hear about half the corps just being gone and all of that, I mean, that is a comeback story. What was it? What was the culture? What was it that brought that level of execution out of that train wreck of a situation?
I think once the disease, or whatever you want to call it, the pandemic that hit that corps, I mean, after that was done, we were like, that's it. We don't have time to talk about that. Practices were intense, and we just, there was no time to mess around. And I can say it in other terms, but we made it a point to just be passionate about everything we did. And I think the staff embraced that too. They saw that we were really, really focused on making sure that this was an exceptional product, putting it out. And if Sully would not back down either. If he saw that, everybody saw how invested the corps was as soon as we started to get our feet underneath us. And that's all it took. It is a demanding show, musically and marching, and everybody realized that, but everybody wanted to put forth their best effort.
And I gotta say, honestly, Dave, and you might agree or disagree with me, but I think one of the things that helped us achieve, because when you look at, like the Greeley bug, everything that happened, we should never have finished and accomplished what we did, at the middle of August where we started. But I think one of the positives for us was, like, I know I was a rookie. Kit, you were a rookie. Emily, you were a rookie. I think the fact that we were rookies and kind of didn't realize what, like, compared to, say, being a vet of like 8 or 9 years going, oh, this is awful, the course sucks, blah blah. We just didn't know any better. And we just let the staff just whoop us every day. And they were relentless, and they did not settle for anything less than 100%. and I think that was a positive for us in a weird way. Because I mean, Dave, what was the percentage? I mean, it was pretty high in terms of rookies that year, right?
It was a really young corps.
Yeah.
You froze up on me, Joe.
Sorry. I said, I know in 92 we had a lot of rookies because a lot of people had aged out or a lot of people just didn't come back after 91. So do you remember what the breakdown was, percentage?
I truly believe it was a good cocktail. It was a good cocktail of kind of pushed the whole thing together. If you look at the staff that we have, the history of some of them now, I mean, you look at Leon May, he's writing drill. Jeff Sackdick was out there. Tom Monks is a legend.
Yeah.
Willie Higgins is a legend. I mean, just all the people that are out there. Michael Huber, he was a Suncoast Sound guy. He came over, and not many people embraced him. But I was like, I'm all for intensity right now. I don't care. I'll take it any inch I can get to make sure that everybody is successful in what's going on. And if there was any hint of I don't want to call it malaise or whatever you want to call it, but it just wasn't acceptable. It just had to be perfect, and that's what everybody I think embraced mostly.
Yeah.
And being a rookie, I'm
funny.
sure it was like, oh my God, what did I sign up for this summer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can remember my first day there. Dave, I was intimidated by you and that Southie accent and everything else. But was making sure that everybody was clean shaven. Like I didn't even shave yet, and people were coming around to check to make sure that I was shaved. And just before we went out on the field and stuff. I mean, it was super scrappy, right? The cadets, the whole organization was super scrappy. I mean, we had older uniforms. They were not all new uniforms every year like the drum corps have now. I had an old DEG instrument in the key of G, like we were still playing old key of G instruments. Mine was pretty banged up, but it worked. And it's big and heavy compared to, the more modern B flat instruments everybody's got now. I mean, buses broke down during the summer. I mean, stuff happened like left and right, but we worked our asses off. I mean, we really did. Like on the drum bus that I sat on with Joe, I mean, those guys were practicing in the bus constantly. Nobody was sleeping. Everybody's just constantly practicing in the bus. And then the workouts, like Dave is not kidding. The number of times we did, I mean, I think Dave, what were they? It was at least 4 3-hour blocks a day. It felt like at certain points that summer because we were just behind and everybody understood that. And that staff was relentless. I mean, Joe Roach, was he the marching instructor, was just in your teeth like all day long, marching, very aggressive. And I was scared to death. I didn't want to make a mistake because I was scared I was going to get yelled at. So, it was really, it was a great experience on the back end of it, but it was a grind during that summer. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Dave,
Joe,
Dave got a funny
Roach,
connection.
I'm glad I'll wait until you guys all come back here. Let me know when you get back.
Well, I'll while Elon Musk Starlink is working for me, I'll take the coconut. So
go ahead.
So it's amazing to hear all these things I would have never guessed in a million years. You watch the end result of that show and you think, well, that was a trajectory of a cadets show. That was, I mean, it was probably pretty good to begin with. It ended up spectacular. It was a normal season, right? It was disciplined. It was right. But no, it was a train wreck. And what sounds like it was just magical. The mindset of so many rookies of not knowing that they couldn't do it. And so you just did. And it's amazing. If anybody was to look at an example of just getting her done and forgetting the fact that you shouldn't, couldn't, or are unlikely to, you guys are it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, we didn't practice victory arcs or anything like that. Other people have other songs they play and that type of thing. We didn't practice that at all. So I can remember one time we were in a show and I think we tied with Phantom Regiment. And so we both did a victory arc afterwards. Hopefully the rest of the team remembers this. And they played, Amazing Grace and sounded beautiful and looked very presentable. And it was clear they had done that. I think, Dave, you had us line up in an arc. You're like, okay, guys, we're going to play from like this part to this part. And that's it. Right. And so we got out there and played that part of the show. And then some of us didn't know, like, are we supposed to keep our feet still, or are we supposed to, do the high stepping when that came in, and only some of us did it and some of us didn't, because we hadn't practiced what to do once you won a show. We were getting beat by the Crusaders early in the summer, I think.
Crossman.
Crossman, I meant. Sorry, the Crossman early
yeah.
in the summer, not the Crusaders, but the Crossman. We were getting spanked by them early in the summer, but by the end, we were elite. But it was an act of force that enabled that to happen. It felt like.
But I just will just add this: out of the four of us, I'm the only one who was able to march in '93. The standard that we set, and I talked with some friends that we all marched with in '92, and they talked about how it wasn't until like say the last like 2 or 3 weeks that we really became the cadets, and everything that we did that summer laid the groundwork for '93. There was a load of us that came back, and '93 was so much easier than '92 was.
Yeah.
Because I felt like we really hit the ground running because of the blueprint of what we did from '92 that carried over into '93.
Yeah. And I,
Oh, poor Dave.
when I started in '87, I remember I was 15 years old, I think, and I was so in this parking lot. And to me, what impressed me the most were the lead soprano. Comedy, if you look at names right now, just John Hartnett, John Vanderkoff was Ricky Wygant, which was the soloist for all those years. John Vanderkoff, Jeff Sackdick, all these guys that are now like legends or whatever. But when we were doing just the exercise block, I remember seeing John Vanderkoff run. Like we were supposed to do this lap around this parking lot. He ran, and I'm dying. I'm at the end, and I get done, and these guys are already organizing their charts. They're smoking their cigarettes. They're stretching out. They're ready to go. But through time and through the years, it was like one of those things. It's like you have a responsibility to get your stuff together and make sure that you are good, and you don't want to. And that's kind of the culture of what the cadets had. And I think that's the reason why. And sometimes I listen to other corps and bands, mediocre. And it's weird because you look at the Blue Devils and it's look like they have talent every year, But I was extra time, and I needed the extra practice. And it's just the way we practiced and the sense of responsibility that was together. Because it's on display no matter what. And that really what drew me back every year.
Well, and that year, not only legendary for me personally because of this journey that we're talking about here on the book, but then leading into that legendary '93 year, another David Holsinger work. And so that art at that era, at that time, just really magical, I think. Every art form goes through its magical period. And for me and my own inspiration, those late 80s through 90s and to the early aughts, for me is the magical drum corps year. And you guys personified that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up by thanking you guys. Thank you guys for being here to share your memories and your story, but also thank you for creating a piece of art that that now is having new dimensions, right? And you were all there. You did it. You created something big, complicated, and beautiful, as my character Medlock would say. And I'm very, very grateful for that. So I want to thank you for joining here. Thanks for sharing your memories. Who knows if the Taming the Perilous Skies, the motion picture, hits it big, maybe then I'll go and ask for the whole 150 of you to come back and we'll share.
Yeah,
more memories.
I think it was only 128 back then.
You're right.
It was 128.
It's hard to believe, actually. It's hard to believe that only 128 people could do that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, thank you again. And Joshua, thank you for helping kick us off. And so it's great to connect with all of you. I do hope we stay in touch. And thank you again for being an inspiration.
In fourth place with a score of 95.4, 95.4, the Blue Devils. In third place with a score of 96.7, 96.7, Star of Indiana. In second place with a score of 97.0, 97.0, the Cadets of Bergen County.
Professional audiobooks in a click. Spoken.